The evolutionary blueprint of the avian world contains many apex configurations, but none are as deeply misunderstood or as terrifyingly efficient as the Strigiformes lineage. To the casual human observer, the owl is a symbol of wisdom, a quiet nocturnal creature perched on ancient barn roofs or nesting in the hollows of decaying forest trees. We see them in children's books and cultural folklore, reduced to caricatures with oversized eyes and slow, deliberate head rotations. But if you strip away the thick layers of human romanticism and look directly into the structural reality of this nocturnal predator, you discover a hyper-specialized, biological stealth platform that completely dominates the night sky. The owl is not merely a bird. It is an organic weapon system engineered to execute absolute sensory deprivation warfare against its prey. Millions of years before human military engineering attempted to design radar-evading aircraft or high-definition thermal imaging devices, this silent executioner had already perfected a biological network that turns the absolute darkness of midnight into an open, high-visibility hunting matrix. To decode the tactical supremacy of the owl, one must first dissect the intricate engineering of their visual apparatus, which functions on an entirely different operational plane than human eyesight. An owl does not possess spherical eyeballs like humans or typical diurnal birds. Instead, their eyes are elongated tubes secured rigidly inside their skulls by specialized bony structures known as sclerotic rings. Because these visual tubes are locked completely in place, the owl cannot rotate its eyes to track an object. This structural limitation is not a defect, but a calculated engineering trade-off that allows for an incredibly massive lens and retina configuration. Their eyes are packed with an overwhelming density of light-sensitive rod cells, creating a visual matrix that can amplify the faintest ambient starlight or moonlight by thousands of times. They do not see a dark, impenetrable void when they patrol the forest floor. They view the landscape in a sharp, high-contrast spectrum where every moving shadow and shifting blade of grass stands out with unmistakable clarity. This permanent lock on their visual tubes is precisely why the owl evolved its legendary, hyper-extended cervical kinetic engine. To compensate for mobile eyes, the owl possesses 14 neck vertebrae, exactly twice the number found in the human spine. This anatomical architecture allows them to rotate their heads up to 270 degrees in either direction, without shifting their primary body alignment or making a single rustle of feathers. To prevent this extreme twisting from cutting off blood flow to the brain, their circulatory system features specialized reservoir cavities and hyperelastic arterial walls that act as structural shock absorbers. When the head turns at a radical angle, compressing the primary vessels, these internal reservoirs instantly expand to maintain an uninterrupted supply of oxygenated blood to their hyper-accelerated neural processes. This mechanical innovation allows the owl to scan its entire 360-degree perimeter while remaining completely motionless, transforming them into a static, undetectable radar tower hidden in the shadows. But visual dominance is only half of the owl's dual-medium sensory tracking system. The true masterstroke of their evolutionary engineering resides within their hydroacoustic and structural auditory mapping array. The large, circular facial disc characteristic of most owl species is not a cosmetic feature. It functions exactly like a satellite dish composed of highly specialized, stiff feathers that collect and funnel sound waves directly into their hidden ear openings. Unlike mammals, the ear slits of an owl are completely asymmetrical, with one ear positioned high on the skull than the other, and tilted at a different angle. This structural displacement creates a temporal and spatial offset for incoming sound waves. When a rodent moves beneath a deep layer of snow or dense forest leaf litter, the sound of its footsteps reaches each ear at a fraction of a millisecond apart and at slightly different volumes. The owl's brain instantly processes this micro-delay, calculating precise intersection of horizontal and vertical sound vectors to create a three-dimensional acoustic map of the prey's exact coordinates without ever needing to see it. This level of sensory perfection would be completely useless if the predator made noise while closing in on its target. In the arena of natural aerodynamics, flight is inherently chaotic and loud, produced by the heavy churning of air over rigid wing surfaces. Yet, the owl has completely bypassed this physical limitation through a three-stage acoustic dampening architecture built directly into its plumage. The leading edge of their primary flight feathers is equipped with a cone-like fringe of stiff, microhooks that break up the air current into tiny, harmless microeddies before it can create a rushing wind sound. The trailing edge of the feathers features a soft, porous fringe that mutes the turbulence as it leaves the wing, while the entire upper surface of their feathers is covered in a downy, velvet-like material that absorbs any residual friction noise generated by the feathers rubbing against each other. When an owl drops from its perch to strike, it slides through the air column in absolute, dead silence, completely invisible to the sensitive, high-frequency hearing of the mammals it hunts, setting the stage for a psychological blueprint that dictates their absolute internal order and survival logic. As the veil of midnight thickens over the rugged canopy of the ancient woodlands, the owl population does not awake in a state of uncoordinated wanderlust. They activate a highly disciplined, decentralized reconnaissance matrix. Operating as solitary nodes within a shared territory, these silent killers partition the darkness into clear, overlapping surveillance sectors. Every high-altitude perch, every dead branch, and every abandoned structure is utilized as a tactical observation post. They do not waste valuable kinetic energy flying aimlessly across the forest. They implement a hyper-efficient sit-and-wait strategy that turns patience into a deadly science. They sit perfectly still for hours, their bodies blending seamlessly with the rough textures of the tree bark, while their acoustic and visual tracking arrays scan the forest floor for any breach of security by target species. The true operational genius of this reconnaissance phase lies within its multilayered spatial mapping protocol. When an owl occupies a hunting territory, it constructs an intricate, memory-based map of every single physical asset within its boundaries. They memorize the exact height of every branch, the dense patches of ground cover, the regular pathways used by small mammals, and the precise location of potential rival hazards. This mental grid is so absolute that an owl can launch an attack from its perch in total darkness and navigate through a dense, chaotic maze of interlacing branches without a single wing clipping a leaf. They rely on internal spatial memory to guide their flight trajectories, allowing them to focus their real-time processing power entirely on tracking the real-time adjustments of their prey. This individual spatial dominance is balanced by an intricate, silent network of acoustic territory markers. While owls are notoriously solitary hunters, they maintain a highly regulated systemic order across their shared boundaries through low-frequency vocal signatures. The deep, resonance hooting of an apex owl species is not a random environmental sound. It is a complex acoustic digital signature that transmits the individual's precise location, physical size, breeding status, and territorial claims across vast distances. These low-frequency sound waves can pass through dense vegetation and heavy fog without losing structural integrity, ensuring that neighboring competitors can constantly adjust their individual hunting paths to avoid overlapping conflicts, preserving a tense but highly organized balance of power across the entire ecosystem. This internal systemic organization becomes critical during seasonal migrations or sudden resource shifts caused by severe weather patterns. When a localized environmental shift causes the rodent population to collapse in one sector, the owl population executes a highly disciplined redistribution. They move across the shifting landscape like a ghost fleet, adjusting their spatial boundaries without the explosive, destructive territorial wars that characterize other apex predators. They read the changes in the environment, the decreasing weight of the winter snow, the changing migratory flight paths of smaller birds, and the structural degradation of the forest cover, and adjust their tactical perches to exploit the newest, highest density foraging zones, setting the stage for a psychological blueprint that governs their internal family structures and lifelong commitments. Deep within the structural core of the owl matrix lies an unyielding, lifelong social operating system known as a code of infinite vigilance. To the casual human observer, the nesting site of an owl seems like a quiet, domestic sanctuary built for the continuation of the species. But when analyzed through the lens of evolutionary optimization, you uncover a fierce, calculated framework of territorial defense, selective survival, and lifetime alliances. Most large owl species form long-term or lifelong monogamous pair bonds, constructing a stable microcoalition that operates with the mechanical precision of a military unit. They do not build their own nest from scratch. They actively seize and reinforce pre-existing structures, such as the abandoned stick nests of large hawks, hollowed-out tree cavities, or isolated cliff ledges, transforming these positions into impenetrable genetic fortresses. The allocation of energy and roles within this family unit is executed with mathematical discipline. During the critical incubation phase, the division of labor is absolute. The female occupies a nest permanently, using her specialized brood patch to transfer heat directly to the eggs, while her entire physical security and caloric intake are outsourced entirely to the male. The male operates as a dedicated resource extraction engine, flying continuous, high-intensity hunting sorties throughout the night to feed both himself and his partner. He must maintain a perfect kill ratio, navigating through changing weather conditions, wind shear, and competing nocturnal predators to deliver a continuous stream of protein to the nesting site, ensuring that the female never has to leave the eggs exposed to the killing chill of the night. When the young hatch, the true intensity of their evolutionary sort algorithm manifests within the nest box itself. Owl eggs do not hatch simultaneously. They hatch in an asynchronous sequence over several days. This creates a staggered hierarchy of chicks, with the oldest and largest sibling holding a massive physical advantage over its younger, fragile nestmates. The parent birds do not attempt to enforce artificial equality or distribute food evenly among their offspring. They feed the largest, most aggressive chick first. If the local rodent population is booming, there is enough resource volume to feed the entire brood. But if a sudden scarcity hits the territory, the older sibling quickly monopolizes the incoming food, while the younger chicks rapidly weaken and perish. This calculated evolutionary protocol ensures that even during a catastrophic resource collapse, at least one high-grade, premium-conditioned genetic asset survives to maturity, rather than wasting the entire energy investment on a brood of weakened individuals. This internal ruthlessness is matched by an explosive, completely fearless defense of the nesting perimeter against external threats. When a climbing mammalian predator, a rival raptor, or an intrusive human investigator breaches the invisible safety radius of the nest, the parent owls instantly drop their silent stealth protocol and transform into terrifying engines of kinetic fury. They launch high-speed, direct aerial assaults, diving out of the dark canopy with their massive, curved talons extended like iron hooks. They do not hesitate to strike at the eyes and heads of attackers many times their own size, using their heavy wings to disorient and their sharp bills to inflict structural damage. They turn their deep spatial awareness into an offensive weapon, protecting their genetic line with an unyielding intensity that has kept their nesting stronghold secure through millions of years of evolutionary pressure, yet they now face completely unprecedented disruption as the world shifts under the weight of human expansion. In the contemporary era, human industrial expansion and technological dominance have established a sprawling, synthetic infrastructure that has inadvertently turned the owl into one of the most heavily monitored, structurally analyzed, and environmentally squeezed groups in the avian world. Recognizing their position as critical indicators of ecosystem health, human scientific institutions have deployed a massive network of digital surveillance tools to track their movements. Researchers attach high-frequency GPS telemetry backpacks to wild owls, install hidden night vision cameras inside their nesting boxes, and analyze their skeletal remains inside laboratory clean rooms. Humanity believed it could map out the operational parameters of this nocturnal phantom, reducing a legendary predator into an easily managed data point inside conservation databases. This intense scientific tracking transformed the owl into an essential instrument within the fields of biomechanics and acoustic engineering. Human aerospace developers analyzed the microstructure of owl feathers under electron microscopes to design quieter drone propellers, specialized wind turbines, and sound-absorbing industrial insulation. Their unique visual and auditory systems are digitized to help train computer vision algorithms and advanced acoustic location systems used in modern defense applications. Humanity attempted to harvest the biological intellectual property of the owl, believing that their ancient lifestyle could be neatly catalogued and boxed within the artificial borders of wildlife reserves and managed agricultural zones. But while human engineers were busy copying their physical blueprints inside laboratories, the wild owl populations were executing a silent, highly successful colonization of the human industrial landscape itself. As urban sprawl shattered the ancient forests and turned wild meadows into concrete grids, many owl species did not retreat into extinction. Instead, the ancient nomadic software analyzed the new human infrastructure and integrated it directly into their hunting algorithms. They transformed abandoned industrial warehouses, structural bridge beams, church steeples, and high-voltage power towers into premium nesting perches that provided unparalleled vantage points over the changing terrain. The wild owl emerged as a supreme urban eco-intelligence, completely twisting human modifications to serve its own survival. They discovered that the artificial street lighting of human cities acts as a powerful trap for insects and small rodents, creating high visibility, high-density feeding zones that require a fraction of the hunting energy spent in the deep forest. They expanded their diets to exploit urban pest populations and master the art of navigating through chaotic webs of electrical wires and fast-moving highway traffic with absolute precision. Today, massive populations of wild owls continue to dominate the suburban and urban nightscapes, running a secret, highly effective ecological empire that thrives directly above the heads of human civilization while remaining completely insulated from human authority. This parallel existence, the highly studied research subject on one side and the completely independent urban ghost hunter on the other, has created a complex, highly volatile biological dynamic. The wild owl stands as an untamed genetic powerhouse, its immune systems adapting to urban pollutants, its ears calibrating to the background hum of industrial noise, and its wings refining their silent aerodynamics to conquer the synthetic wind currents of the modern world, waiting patiently for the technological structures of humanity to break down and release the landscape once more. If human civilization were to suffer a sudden, cataclysmic collapse, whether triggered by massive global power failure, an UN-containable technological blackout, or an economic breakdown that completely silences our global industrial engine, the fragile network of human environmental engineering would instantly disintegrate. The millions of glowing streetlights would permanently dark, the heavy highway traffic would grind to a permanent halt, and the sprawling cities would be plunged into an absolute, deep silence. But out in the dark, expanding shadows of these concrete ruins, the wild populations of owls would view this sudden blackout not as an environmental disaster, but as the ultimate green light for absolute planetary reclamation. The phantom executioners of the night would step forward, deploying their hyper-amplified sensory grids and silent flight engines to conquer the decaying monuments of the post-human era. Without human maintenance crews, concrete reinforcement, and chemical management to suppress the natural world, abandoned coastal cities and industrial canal systems would rapidly transform into vast, overgrown grasslands and architectural wildernesses, the absolute premium hunting grounds for the owl empire. The hollow frameworks of empty skyscrapers, rusting factory beams, and silent residential complexes would provide an endless, multi-level matrix of predator-proof nesting sites, allowing their numbers to multiply without any natural restrictions. The massive networks of cracking asphalt roads, overgrown train tracks, and empty parking lots would erupt into a vast sea of wild vegetation, fueling an explosive population boom of small mammals, which would in turn provide a limitless, high-energy fuel source for the growing avian army. Their unmatched acoustic tracking mechanisms and silent hunting ballistics would allow them to dominate the emerging food chains of this new world with absolute authority. The decentralized reconnaissance networks and hyper-focused talents would render their populations completely untouchable by feral domestic competitors or clumsy ground-dwelling predators. They would slide through the empty, dark canyons of human architecture like an unstoppable, invisible wave of death, their tube-shaped eyes detecting the slightest micro-movements of prey long before any competitor could even register their presence. They would transform our forgotten technological megacities into a massive, interconnected empire of vertical avian fortresses rising into the midnight sky. Over deep evolutionary timelines, completely freed from human disturbance and industrial poisons, the owl genome will begin to execute a stunning, unpredictable radiation. The ancient, hyper-resilient predatory systems, sleeping within their DNA, would respond to the countless open ecological niches left behind by collapsed terrestrial and aerial species. We could see distinct lineages of these birds evolving into massive, long-winged diurnal apex predators that reclaim the daytime skies with mathematically perfect hunting vectors. Other specialized branches might optimize their physical structures to become giant, ground-dwelling forest predators that dictate the biological hierarchy of the expanding jungles, completely erasing the human memory of the simple woodland bird. The owl has successfully completed one of the longest, most disciplined journeys in the history of vertebrate survival. They outlasted prehistoric climate shifts, exploited the chaotic expansion of human industrial cities, and kept their elite biological warfare software completely uncorrupted beneath the cover of darkness. They never truly belonged to our nature parks or our scientific databases. They merely used our artificial structures to expand their tracking capabilities, sharpening their senses and multiplying their numbers in the shadows of our civilization. As the fragile matrix of human technology inevitably crumbles into the dust of the geological record, the magnificent, unstoppable swarms of the silent sky will stand victorious over the world, unleashing a permanent, synchronized wave of sensory dominance across the vast, wild expanse of a completely reclaimed planet. If you want to unearth the deep, hidden evolutionary secrets of the animal kingdom and explore the terrifying biological forces that secretly control the landscapes of our world, make sure to subscribe to the channel, activate all notifications, and drop a comment below with your thoughts on this unstoppable aquatic superpower.